Hi, my name's Caden. Thank you for joining me on my TED Talk about renewable energy. Renewable energy is the production of reusable resources to create sustainable energy. This is a very new concept in the world, but has shown researchers and scientists amazing results in sustaining energy efficiency. Energy production like solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal can be reused over and over to power cities and countries in limited quantities. Renewable energy production like hydro and wind use the wind or the weight of the water to spin a motor, creating electricity that can be harnessed and stored for use. The problem in this scenario is production like wind and hydro are not as strong as production like nuclear and fossil fuels. For this reason, countries opt out to use these forms of production instead of renewable energy, as it could cost the country a fortune, and countries like the US are just too big to switch completely to renewable energy. The cost of converting in the next decade will cost around $4.5 trillion to completely switch the US grid to renewable energy. The burning of fossil fuels and other non-renewable resources make up about 3/4 of the carbon emissions. The use of non-renewable resources as fuel has been slowly killing our planet for the past century. These energy sources are just too harsh to sustain the planet for another century, and we could be seeing major effects in climate and natural disasters by as early as 2050. Energy use and production is a timely and expensive way to produce the electricity we need to power the world and its people. The energy production methods we have today range from nuclear, wind, solar, hydro, fossil fuels, and geothermal. Some of these productions of energy are costly and can only be used once before requiring new resources. The burning of fossil fuels is one of the main ways that after the fuel is burned to produce the electricity, we will require more fuel to produce more electricity. Renewable energy, which is a source of production of resources that can be reused over and over to create power. Fossil fuels can be expensive and harmful to the environment, which can lead to global warming and ocean acidification. Renewable energy is a source of production that needs to be used in more countries to slow the rate of global warming and sustain our way of living. The geopolitical aspect of the switch to clean energy would be how the world would not go broke from paying all this money to switch to clean energy. By switching to clean energy, countries with lower GDP will need grants from other countries and from international organizations like the UN to fund the production of renewable energy. These grants are necessary if we want full global clean energy production. The use of fossil fuels and nuclear production make up around 97% of all energy production in the US. This accounts for 3/4% in the carbon emissions. Researchers have claimed at this rate fossil fuel consumption, major effects in climate can be seen with people fleeing their homes near the border to escape the heat, what we like to call climate refugees. This shows the need for renewable energy so we can reform from non-renewable energy production. Renewable energy has a multitude of benefactors, including creating jobs for millions of people with the production, installation, and upkeep of renewable energy sources. This brings economic value to our economy and lowers the unemployment in countries. Renewable energy has some downsides, some side effects to the wildlife and deforestation. Turbines, which are a renewable energy source, have been shown to affect the wildlife and deforestation to make room for these turbines. Also, interference with birds hitting the turbines. With solar energy, the main problem is the space it takes to make these solar fields, which are large plateaus of land that have strictly solar panels in an enclosed area. As space is taken up by human development, there's little space for these solar fields and will result in more forest needing to be cut down to sustain our energy use. However, when you weigh the positives and the negative effects of energy production, the pros outweigh the cons. Switching to renewable energy, although costly, will ensure the human race can live a few more thousand years, and as technology develops, we can create safer ways to harness energy. Renewable energy and its relation with SEEP can be seen for social as the first problem, and this can occur in the understanding and cooperation of the general public. This can mean the general public is informed of the need for renewable energy and what it'll cost taxpayers. This can be crucial as money is needed to switch, and this money will be made by the hard working people. The environmental would be the negative side effects. If immediate action is not taken, the most posing threat will be the major effects of climate change that we'll see in the near future. These effects have already started to affect the planet with climate refugees and harsher natural disasters. Another negative effect we'll see is ocean acidification. This refers to the pH levels in the water dropping due to mass intakes of CO2 emissions. This can lead to water becoming poisonous to swim in or digest, and slowly killing fish and reefs, as we see now with the Great Barrier Reef. The economics in this situation refer to the money it will take to switch from non-renewable resources to renewable energy, and keep our overall temperature at 2.5 degrees. This is also talking about who's going to pay for this entire cost. This switching of renewable resources will take a large sum of money, and the switch will cost around $29 trillion. The discussion is on whether the government themselves should pay or NGOs like the UN should help with the pay. Political situation will be the oversight of the mass switch, so should a dominant power like the US take over, or should it be the UN? The clear answer is the UN, as it is an international organization made up of the world's leaders. Not only bias will not be present, but no one man runs the UN, so it's made up of the world leaders. With this renewable energy, it would fall under the 7th UN Sustainability Goal, as we're striving to find affordable clean energy for all. However, this can also fall under the 13th goal, which is climate action. This is because we're switching to renewable resources to cut our carbon emissions, thus taking action. The first philosopher I'd like to talk about is John Stuart Mill. Mill's theory of utilitarianism, which is in basic terms the actions that are used to better suit the majority. This means that switching to renewable energy would benefit the needs of everyone on this planet. Mill would agree that switching to renewable energy will suit the needs of the majority or the future generations to come. The second philosopher I chose was Jeremy Bentham. Bentham, along with John Stuart Mill, believes in utilitarianism. This means Bentham believed in a greater serving of the majority of the people's needs than the minority. This means Bentham would agree with the implementation of renewable energy as it better serves the needs of the many, the world. Both of these philosophers would agree with renewable energy as it benefits the population over the needs of the minority, which could be governments like the US not wanting to spend their money to make the switch from non-renewable resources to clean energy. The person most interested in this situation would be Greta Thunberg. Her work focuses on bringing clean energy to help fight climate change around the world. Her main arguments deal with the use of renewable resources and our carbon footprint, and getting leaders in this day and age to stand against climate change and rise up. Greta has developed and spent so much of her young childhood to fight against climate change, and as a human race, we need to kind of stop the CO2 emissions before we make it irreversible. This can be seen directly relating to globalization and trade between nations. As Greta said before, the world leaders need to step up and start combating this issue. However, some countries feel they don't have enough money and assets to switch to renewable energy. This is where trade should come into play. By setting up an agreement amongst all countries, those leaders can trade between each other, giving the poor countries the opportunity to make money and able to pay for the cost of switching over. Globalization has brought us many countries willing and able to trade to make a profit off another country's goods and services. By allowing countries to trade globally regardless of politics, we can produce enough money on jobs to pay for renewable energy production. The problem with the ability of trade is the openness to trade. The international businesses like Apple and Pepsi or any other big company see this trade between nations a huge dent in their annual income. Some businesses are just completely in it for the money, and so many businesses will decline to sell their goods to foreign investors. If this happens globally, it can create a snowball effect, and trade amongst countries and impoverished countries not being able to raise enough money to switch to renewable energy resource production. However, companies like Berkshire Hathaway Energy are working towards the implementation of renewable resources and renewable production in the US. BHE has been in operation since 2012 and has been investing in wind, solar, and hydro and geothermal energy, and starting the switch from non-renewable resources to renewable resources. In 2018, BHE invested $6.5 billion in solar electricity, making it the largest solar project in US history. With this effect of politics to the adaptation of renewable energy, you could see politics during the Industrial Revolution mainly focused on the development and sustainability of the economy. This Industrial Revolution led to GDP spikes and job creation for millions of people. The problem was that the science and politics don't mix. For thousands of years, we've known climate change and CO2 emissions will hurt us in the future. The problem was the lack of education to the world's leaders at the time of what they're doing to the planet. Those countries were focused on making money and spending the money. They're not realizing the irreversible damages that they were committing. This, although, was beneficial to the economy and its people, the world never realized what they were doing. This can also be seen today, however. In 2018, Donald Trump told the press he believes that climate change is a myth and that it does not exist. Remarks like this can go to show the lack of education amongst world leaders. Having leaders during the revolution and in today's day and age, knowing the harm they're causing to the planet, leads to people not caring about what happens to the future generations. The political problems with renewable energy and today's leaders in the world is mainly cost. Having a country like the US needing $4.5 trillion to completely switch is something that they will not get taxpayers' money for. Most governments are worrying about more pressing problems like the GDP, poverty, agriculture, the workforce, and the military. The US could switch their energy sources to clean renewable energy sources. However, they choose not to because of the other areas the money could be placed into, like the military. There are also some countries who simply don't have the funds to switch to renewable resources. These countries will need help through grants and trade to raise money to power their countries on clean energy. So when you look at all of this together, you can see apathy being used to show how countries may simply not care or believe that switching to renewable resources is a problem or their problem. Some countries like the US believe that the fight for climate change doesn't involve them. This theory can be seen in an example with a fight between two kids and a crowd of people surrounding them. Some people in the crowd may not believe or simply don't want to intervene because they think it's someone else's problem, or they leave it up to someone else to solve. In this scenario, the two kids fighting are climate change, and some countries don't feel it's necessary to help or intervene because they believe it's another country's responsibility. The solution for this problem would be to switch or fund more ways that we can produce clean renewable energy. This means countries will have to start funding solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal plants to start the transition from switching to non-renewable resources to clean energy. In turn, countries will raise taxes to be able to pay for this new production. However, raising taxes is only a short-term problem, as people will start to save to pay the tax and start to get on board with the idea of renewable energy. Countries like the US fund international companies like BHE to produce more plants. So as a benefit, you can add incentives to the companies to mass produce and distribute renewable energy in wind, solar, hydro, geothermal sources. This can come in the form of bonuses or grants that they give out. This will create a market for renewable energy, and companies will start producing. For the companies with the lower GDP that cannot pay for the transition, it will be mandatory that countries donate funds or support staff like researchers and scientists and renewable energy production like solar and wind to these smaller countries. through the UN or a branch of the UN that is used solely for this transaction. This will ensure that these countries have the tools, the money, everything necessary that they need to complete this project. In my proposed solution, there are many political repercussions that we could face, many of them being countries not wanting to give the money to other countries that they may not like so that they can produce the clean energy that they need. The effect is that countries will not give the money to the UN to give to the needing countries of the world. The direct action these countries need to metabolize is the immediate implementation of the proposed solution globally. This will ensue, and we will have enough time to switch from renewable energy before it's too late. So, in conclusion, the implementation of this policy will have to be utilized immediately to ensure we can get all countries on board and able to fund and start producing clean energy so that we can reverse the effects of climate change and secure the lives of future generations to come. Thank you for watching my Doyle Talk.